Today we're taking a look at the Frank-Starling Law. What the Frank-Starling Law tells us basically is that the volume that the heart pumps out into the system, which is also called the stroke volume, is dependent on the amount of blood that returns to the heart, also known as the end diastolic volume. So all in all, the stroke volume depends on the filling of the heart. And now we're going to take a look at why. Here we see the sarcomeres of the cardiac muscle fibers. It is basically the contractile element of the heart muscle. And these cardiac sarcomeres have an optimal length in which they contract the hardest. And when they're not stretched out optimally, they don't contract as hard. The same goes with if they're stretched too much, they still don't reach this optimal length. So there's an optimal length in which the sarcomeres contract the best. And the stretch of the sarcomeres is of course dependent on the amount of volume that fills out the heart. It can be thought of as a balloon, in which the more you fill it up, the better it will blow out air if you untie the knot. But this comparison is not perfect, because if you fill up the balloon too much, it explodes. And so I would like to try another way of explaining this. Here we see a man on the left that's going to do some exercise with this pulley machine. Now when the man reaches up to grab it, there's an optimal length for his arms, in the same way as there is an optimal stretch of the heart, causing maximum contraction. And when the man doesn't lengthen his arms enough, he can't generate as much force. And the same goes if he lengthens them too much. Now lastly, let's take a look at how this looks like inside of the ventricle. So the ventricle is filled up with blood, and here we see an optimal end diastolic volume. And as a result, a lot of force is generated and a lot of blood is sent out into the system. And now we're looking at an example where the end diastolic volume becomes too large. There's too much stretch of the cardiac sarcomeres. And so the contraction is sluggish. It's not optimal. There's not a lot of force generated. And lastly, an example of where the end diastolic volume is too little. There's almost no stretch at all. And as we already know, the stroke volume decreases as a result of this. Now hopefully you understand the mechanism behind the Frank-Starling Law a little better.
Thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe.